the committee question.
Okay, hello everyone again, and thank you to the new joiners. Yes, it's wonderful that you could attend today. I hope you find this presentation very interesting or useful for you in your work. Please feel free to reach out to me or my colleagues after the event. We will have some opportunity for questions after the panel discussion. So the way it's going to work is, first we'll have a presentation involving a little bit of fun with a Kahoot quiz. I don't know if you know anything about that, but you get to vote multiple choice answers to certain questions that will come up, but Robin will explain a little bit more about that later. So then we'll continue with the presentation, and following that, we have a great panel discussion. I'll let the panel members introduce themselves a bit later on. And at the end of that, we'll open the floor to questions. So we have Maria online and also Robin, who will be checking the chat for any questions, and also Rania checking the Slack. So please feel free to interact and ask us any questions, and we'll follow them up at the end. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to share my screen. So my name is Nadine Michaelides, and I am the CEO of a company called Anima People. We deal with reducing counterproductive behavior and helping to tackle insider threat. So this is the reality. This is how we see it. And of course, you may have seen some different statistics, and that's mainly because the definition of insider threat is a little bit gray, and different companies do different polls, but this is the most, what I've seen most frequently anyway. So we have more than 34% of businesses around the globe are affected by insider threats every single year. Businesses in the US encounter about 2,500 internal security breaches every single day. And over the last 2 years, the number of insider incidents has increased by 44%. The cost per insider threat in 2022 is 15.38 million. That may seem as a surprise to some of you, particularly the cost per insider threat, I think. I think most people reported less than that. Yeah, so I was surprised too when I saw that. And I think it just goes to show we really need to pay attention to this and include it in our budgets. So what exactly is insider threat? Just to, as I said, it's a gray definition. There's lots of definitions out there, but essentially people are an organization's best and biggest asset. However, in some cases, they can also pose an insider risk. The CPNI defines an insider as a person who exploits or has the intention to exploit legitimate access to an organization's assets for unauthorized purposes. An insider could deliberately seek to join your organization by a foreign threat actor, or conduct an insider act, or may be triggered to act at some point during their employment. So here's some examples of insider threat. Well, we have an engineer who steals and sells trade secrets to a competitor. A maintenance technician cuts network server wires and starts a fire, sabotaging operations. A customer service representative downloads client contact information and emails it to a personal account for use when starting their own business. A database administrator accesses client financial information and sells it on the dark web. And an employer brings a weapon to the office and injures or kills several of their co-workers. So here's an example, global law firm in 2021 who suffered a malicious insider threat attack. So there were 4 attorneys who maliciously plotted their exit months, in fact 6 months before they left for a competing firm. Files on clients, correspondence, records, and property were copied and destroyed. Unfortunately, by the time the firm noticed, it was too late. In fact, this law firm actually had to close down completely because of the cost associated with this attack. So this is a sort of tragic event that can happen if people don't pay attention to their employees and mitigate against insider threat. So what exactly are the major drivers? Why is there such a thing as insider threat? What is it that triggers them? Well, monetary gain, fraud, and theft of intellectual properties is an obvious one. Psychological contract breach. I'll just explain what that is and is the fundamental part of my research at UCL over the last 2 to 3 years. So essentially what it is you have your employment contract, which is the hours you work, your job title, the location of work. Everything else is the psychological contract. So that might be that you get a promotion if you work really, really hard, that you get to work from home on a Friday, that you'll be supported throughout your career development. When there's a psychological contract breach, that relationship breaks down and that produces counterproductive behavior, including non-conducive cybersecurity behavior. And of course, another driver is foreign threat actor recruitment, which can also be as a consequence of unhappy, disgruntled employees. So this is also just basically explaining what I just said. So Tang and myself did some research in this area and found that psychological contract breaches initiated revenge-seeking behavior, and that motivated by revenge, employees then engage in workplace deviance. Essentially meaning that people feel violated, revenge cognitions, and this results, the consequence is organizational deviance. So I'm going to show you some case studies now, just so you can kind of get a feeling for what kind of scenarios might be happening around you or within your organizations, so you can be aware of them. So Molly and Tom, they work in customer services for a known bank and are responsible for offering high net worth customers a personal banking service, like a VIP service. Molly's been with the team for 3 years and Tom for 8 years. Both really love their jobs and feel they've developed a valuable relationship with their clients that they do their utmost to protect in any way they can. In fact, their clients are more important to them than their employer. Their manager has suddenly gone on maternity leave, unfortunately, due to some pregnancy complications, and an interim manager is brought in through an agency. Molly and Tom are unhappy with the manager and disagree with how they prioritize internal targets above the needs of their customers. Unfortunately, the relationship breaks down completely and the company failed to support them or take their views into account. Molly and Tom are fed up and decided to look for new jobs. The team are being pressurized to undertake cybersecurity training, but both Molly and Tom are struggling with their workloads and feel demotivated at work. Molly's clients have reported to the bank that she's made some mistakes and doesn't seem to be focused on the job. What do you think would happen next? Is she likely to remain focused? Is she likely to complete the cybersecurity training and be conducive in terms of behavior? Maybe, maybe not. One more case study. Miss R is a software engineer who left university with hopes and dreams of getting a great job and being able to afford to leave home and get her own apartment. Unfortunately, her parents are divorcing and it's intolerable at home and she is desperate to move out. She tried to maintain confidence, but the rejections to her job applications keep pouring in one after the other, and she's just beginning to lose hope. One evening, she's in an online forum chatting to some fellow software engineers when she was approached by someone asking if she was interested in doing some work for them. She's really excited by the prospect of being able to earn a living and get out of that house where she lives and not in harmony, shall we say. And she immediately agrees. Even when she knows that she's being asked to do something illegal, she convinces herself this is only doing what someone else would have done anyway. The thrill of being handed a contract, even if it's under an alias name, is exciting, and within a month, she has her own apartment. Her job was to steal company secrets and inform foreign intelligence. Nobody would know, would they? Would you know from looking at her? Probably not. One more case study. Mrs. A has been working for a company for 6 years and feels she has a really great relationship with her manager, as well as a lot of opportunity for career progression. Her manager announces one day that she's leaving and goes on gardening leave without much of a handover. That means she doesn't have to work a notice. Another manager is brought in on an interim basis, and the relationship breaks down once again. The promotion she'd been working for years is forgotten, and the relationship between them is in tatters. The organization recently accelerated their security training and awareness, and were monitoring managers and teams to evaluate their security behaviors. While she understood the importance, she felt the approach of the new manager was aggressive and didn't motivate her to excel in her new job or get good security behaviors. She found herself asking why she should be working for the company at all, let alone going above the call of duty to fulfill their security-related requests. It's Friday, late afternoon, and just as she picks up her bag off her chair to head home for the weekend, she receives an email from her new manager asking her to update all her passwords before the end of the day. Should she do it or should she not? Is this an insider threat? One could argue it's negligence. Is it intentional? Is it not intentional? The point is it's not conducive behavior if she doesn't do it, and it's unlikely that she will. She will go home and deal with this on Monday at best. So why do we need to know now? Humans are not weak. They are the best defense. Understanding motivation or barriers to motivation is a critical part of behavior change towards a secure world. Not everyone can be trained to adopt good cyber hygiene. That's really important to know. A lot of people assume, especially awareness and training programs, that everyone has a motivation to do it. Not everyone does. And it is the organization's responsibility to find out why. Why are they not motivated? What are the issues underlying? So what can you do in your organization? Well, I've said it before and I'll say it again till I'm blue in the face. Security is our business. That's you, me, everyone in this room, everyone on Zoom. It's our responsibility. And that means you. So why is your role important in the prevention of insider threat? Well, technological solutions are very, very important, such as user behavior monitoring. But unfortunately, they only detect or tend to detect suspicious behavior when it's too late, and the employee is at high risk of causing harm. You can help identify counterproductive attitudes and behavior and prevent behaviors from materializing into an insider attack. Fostering a great security culture creates a human firewall. The cracks are more visible when your wall of defense is made of concrete, so start building it. So here's some insider threat common behaviors. I'm going to discuss a little bit the technical side as well, but stick to the psychology as this is what this is all about. So we have some system-related signs here: erratic access, excessive access, access without need to know, off-peak access. These are behaviors which security teams hopefully can identify. And then we have some more personal signs, so unusual erratic behavior perhaps, or a sudden change in financial status, cover-up of travel, foreign contacts, or other suspicious activities, unreported offers of financial aid, favors or gifts, or exploitable behavior. Here's some 8 tips to detect and avoid those insider threats. So I'm sure you've heard it a million times before, but of course, evaluate and improve your security policies. They should include procedures to prevent and detect misuse of company resources. Screen new hires, talk to your HR directors, work in collaboration. Experts say that more time spent investigating an applicant's background, the better. Products such as PATH, which is something that Anima offers, and other psychometric assessments help to recruit the more trustworthy talent. Monitor and report disgruntled or compromised employees, but to the right person that can treat it fairly and with due diligence. Pay attention to potential red flags, such as low morale or an official reprimand of an employee. HR and IT should be working together to use the appropriate solutions. Facilitate regular cybersecurity awareness training. I'm sure all of you are doing this already. Employee education remains key to breach prevention, including cybersecurity awareness. Next month, of course, is October Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Make sure that this is included as part of your onboarding program. Don't neglect physical security. There's a big focus on cyber. Cyber is, of course, center stage and incredibly important, but don't forget about your physical security. Examine past insider threats incidents. What happened? Why did it happen? If you don't know, bring people in to help. What can you do to mitigate it from happening again? Secure your offboarding. It's amazing how many people don't. Employees will probably have a proprietary attitude towards the data that they collected during employment. Even if they leave the company on good terms, they could bring it with them. Balance employee privacy. Employers need to balance reducing insider threats and protecting employees' privacy. This is incredibly important. So how do we actually recognize those insider threats? Well, we have a database that includes psychological, superficial or situational factors such as personality, degree of loyalty, commitment, trust, and also cultural factors and background information. What languages do they speak? What's their education? Security vetting and background checks help to reduce the risk of insider threat. It's a fact. So some more behavioral indicators here. A dissatisfied or disgruntled employee, contractor, vendor, or partner. Someone that attempts to circumvent security, regularly working off hours, displays resentment towards co-workers, routine violation of organizational policies, someone that's contemplating resignation or discussing new opportunities. Perhaps they're asking you for some strange information or have some strange requests and you feel a little bit uncomfortable and it's making you a little bit suspicious. Report it to the right person. And some digital indicators here. So obviously, surge in volume of network traffic, signing into enterprise applications at unusual times, accessing resources they don't usually or not permitted to do so, accessing data they shouldn't, repeated requests for access to system resources not relevant for their job function. USB drives, be careful with those USB drives. Try and avoid use of them altogether. Network crawling and deliberate search for sensitive information, emailing sensitive information outside of the organization. So we're going to go a little bit more detail into the psychology side of it now. So there are precipitating events such as, so these are events that can happen prior to insider threat, which may increase the likelihood of insider threat. So employee dismissal, disputes with employers, for example, over intellectual property rights, perceived injustices. This comes back to the psychological contract breach that I discussed earlier. Family problems, divorce, child custody issues, health problems, all sorts of things could be the reason why they may engage in insider threat. Coercion, of course. A new opportunity, a new job perhaps from a competing company who may be encouraging them to take some data or customers with them. The Dark Triad. Okay, so this is, the Dark Triad consists of 3 socially adverse personality traits. I mean, the database that we have includes over 150 different psychological constructs. So I'm just presenting a few of them now. Machiavellism, self-interest, deception, manipulation, narcissism, grandiosity, entitlement, dominance, superiority. Thrill-seeking, along with low empathy and low anxiety. Some historical behavior. Addictive practices such as gambling or alcohol abuse could be a sign. Previous rule violations, if they've been breaking the law before, or some perhaps harassment issues or company policy violations that may be in their past. Criminal history. History of serious mental problems can be a factor. So this is just an example of, I'm just presenting you some very psychological constructs which are quite high level, but they can actually be automated and presented as a dashboard in this way. So I just wanted to show you and just introduce a little bit of path so you understand that psychology too can be measured and quantified. So this is a departmental risk score. So PATH has been developed at UCL based on a methodology that has been used for many years in the military and security services to recruit and retain only the most trustworthy talent. Now it's available to organizations globally. By evaluating the workforce on a routine basis, cross-departmentally, organizations receive a heat map with associated risk scores so they can better define their strategies in the prevention of cyber incidents. So I'm showing you these so you can get a feeling for the different categories or profiles of people in terms of your employees. So we have 4 different categories here: compliant, reluctant, resistant, and revengeful. So compliant doesn't simply mean that they're currently compliant. It means that this is someone that is intrinsically motivated towards compliance no matter what happens during their workplace career development. So it's someone that is trustworthy, committed, and loyal to that organization. It's the gold standard of employee that we all want to recruit. Reluctant, this is more increasingly since COVID has happened. It's more of a transactional relationship. It's probably most people. It's a situation where, well, if you treat me nicely, I'll be good to you. So if you give me, promotion when I feel it's okay, then I'll be conducive in terms of cybersecurity behavior and do the cybersecurity training, etc. So it's more of a transactional situation. Resistant. This could be someone that is perhaps doesn't like change, or it could be due to a psychological contract breach, that they're disgruntled. There's some issue why they do not want to adopt cybersecurity behavior, why they do not want to protect the organization from attack. Revengeful. This is clearly someone that maliciously intends to do harm against the organization. So hopefully you want to be identifying people right at the reluctant stage and not wait to the revengeful stage, which is when they're obviously doing some behaviors which technological solutions will hopefully pick up, those erratic behaviors in the middle of the night, or doing something that they're accessing data that they shouldn't do, etc., etc. So what you should be doing yourselves and encouraging your colleagues to do is become insider risk ambassadors. Embed security savvy behaviors in the workplace by being good role models and sharing knowledge and skills with colleagues. Being vigilant to others who may not be adopting security behaviors. Take note of red flags: intention to leave, disgruntled employees, lack of commitment, loyalty, or trust, keen interest in classified information. Some key takeaways. So insider threat is clearly an increasing problem. We saw that from the Kahoot quiz earlier on, yet many only pay attention when disaster strikes. Evaluating insider risk and having a program is critical for building a robust wall of defense and a human firewall. Security is our business, and you can prevent counterproductive behavior from paralyzing a business. Okay, so we're going to have the panel discussion now. I'm just going to present the questions, quickly run through them. So what are the challenges in identifying and monitoring insider threat? What are the challenges in managing insider risk? And what are the obstacles in implementing human factors solutions to insider threat? So we're going to have questions after the panel discussion, as I said earlier. And I'm just going to stop sharing my screen and move to the panel. Thank you. Okay, Well, I'd like to present to you these wonderful panel members that have traveled from all around Sweden to be here today.
Here we are.
I'll let them introduce themselves. So first of all, Robert.
Robert Willborg, CSA, Chief Security Advisor at One More Secure, previously CISO at Jungle Map.
My name is Jan Olsson, work for the Swedish Cybercrime Center within the Swedish National Police.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Nadine. I'm Petter Larsson from Great IT, Risk Security and Strategy Advisors. Strong governmental background, working on the offensive side.
Great. Thank you so much for coming today to Stockholm. And yeah, I'm really interested to know your insight and your perspective on some 3 questions here. So we'll start with the first one. What are the challenges in identifying and monitoring insider threats? Perhaps, Robert, would you like to go first? You think about what some key challenges are. How do you identify and how do you monitor it today? Considering it's obviously increasing more quickly than perhaps the technological solutions that we can have to mitigate it.
From my point of view, the main issue is having people that is going to monitor those people being insider threats, having the correct knowledge and tools, education to actually find them, to know the red flags, to actually have a good mindset of where to look and why to look. The other problem is on the hand of the employees. I mean, you run through those 4 stages where an employee can actually elevate from being a benign to a malicious one. If somebody who is set out to have the responsibility to find those red flags in the employees doesn't have the mindset, and the employee, on the other hand, is on different stages, that could be the main problem, actually.
Yeah, I think also when HR and IT or security teams don't talk to each other, perhaps HR know that a particular employee is having some issues, but whether they communicate that to the security teams, I don't know. Do you think that happens?
Any lack of holistic communication between departments is obviously a downside to any business. But in these times where competition is so hard, I mean, the core focus is actually business. You need to sell. You need, even if you're a non-profit organization, you need to actually go in the plus side. So these questions tends to be down prioritized every time because they don't happen on a day-to-day basis in their world and in the C-section level. So that tends to actually have, if you lack communication, you don't know what to communicate and how to communicate, what to look for in the red flag. So yes, of course, you need a coherent, holistic view from every department, from every top to bottom.
Yeah, I agree. What do you think, Jan? Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, what I can add is our problem is that our organization is so large, 4,000 employees. So, I mean, what can you do? You let all of these employees have certain access to the system so they can't misuse it too much. And we can only see that this is happening in an insider afterwards. The damage is already done, as I see it, because in the beginning they are probably not employed as criminal-minded people. They are becoming that during the travel inside the police department, so to speak. So I think we are working very, very, very hard to detect when they misuse it as employee to try to stop them before becoming employed. I think we are not that good, actually, because we are leaking information all the time. It's not 365 days a year we're leaking information. Someone is leaking information.
That's really interesting. So actually the biggest problem is more current employees being either recruited or not having conducive behavior and becoming a threat, more than obviously people coming into the organization already being a threat.
Yeah, among 40,000 people, I mean, someone knows someone that is criminal minded, so to speak. So I think we have another type of problem than the private sector. Private sector, they may employ people that becoming a threat, but don't knowing about, because they are using social engineering to make them do something that they are not aware of, that they are doing something wrong. I mean, clicking on attached files on the emails or whatever. But on the other hand, we see in the ransomware situation that the APT groups in Russia are paying up to $1 million to these guys to become an insider. So we don't have that problem. No one is paying a police officer $1 million to leak information, I can promise you.
Okay.
We don't have that problem, the same problem
Yeah.
as the private sector, I guess.
But perhaps a bigger problem when it comes to foreign state actors. And we've had all the news about the Nord 1 and Nord 2 at the moment.
Yeah, but that's not my cup of tea. So it's not the police matter.
Yeah. Okay.
It's more the secret police maybe and so on.
Yeah. Petter, is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think so. I think one challenge is balancing the monitoring aspects and also the ethics or privacy aspects. So depending on where you are as a leadership team or management team, post incident, you will be much in a tendency to be a little bit more aggressive. Watch out about the privacy, I would say, in that situation. And then also perhaps at this question to really make sure that you are asset oriented in your the design of the security setup. I think there's a risk of going too general in these insider situations.
How do you mean being asset?
Yeah, again, you don't want to end up being the organization or the company who perform a little bit of mass monitoring. You don't want your insider threat system to create a risk by its existence. And I think it's more important than one might consider in the first place.
I think you're absolutely right. I think there's a very fine line. I mean, when I give these presentations, I always say that the security culture is the most important thing. We don't want to start discriminating against people because of their backgrounds or what languages they speak. That's really, really important, which is why if there is something suspicious, that it's reported to the right official, the right person that can do something about it in a holistic and a positive way, shall we say.
I think so. And perhaps it's more on the second question, but I'll take it here. The thing to make sure that you incorporate also the behavior of ambitious, well-minded colleagues, but their actual hands will perform the same movements as an ill-minded, dangerous insider. My hands will, even if I'm very loyal, I will also take the USB and download the file and travel to Spain. And I actually extract a file I shouldn't have done because I want to do my job very proper and very well. So I think it's a wise thing to at least consider integrating into the insider approach also not ill-minded behavior. If I make myself clear, because it's the same activity.
Absolutely,
So I think that's it.
And adding to the, you see that the main attacks that actually came across very sensitive information. It doesn't happen to huge organization that has the capacity to do monitoring in a proper way or whatever. You attack small level companies that is subcontractor to huge organization where you have the unaware, benign employee that wants to do good, wants to help to do the small thriving company to be a mid-level company, in other words. That would be my point of attack. Try to make them do without them knowing that they're actually doing a malicious thing. And how do small ventures businesses have the money or technology to actually buy logging information, detection, intrusion system on a level with large companies? So it's a discrepancy of huge proportion here.
Yeah, I think when you budget the ideal solution of a cybersecurity team, it's always way above what's rational, what's happening in reality, particularly with small SMEs, small medium enterprises. Would you say that's the true thing?
I would say so. I actually don't have any facts that back me up, but I would actually to stick my chin out, as we say in Sweden, and say, yes, I would say it actually, yes, I would sign to that.
From at least our experience, only from our clients and other discussions, I would say that more and more organizations integrate the human dimension in traditionally technical aspects of security these days than before, and they do it for real. It's no longer a small isolated awareness thing it's actually something that is allowed to take up the space and the bandwidth of the security work, which is and that goes for very mature organizations and also very small but mature organization. I think that's very positive that the human element and also the organizational element is allowed to take up the space here. Not moving away from tech, but add.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think somewhere between 80 and 90% of all data breaches starts up with social engineering. I mean,
Yes. Yeah, some sort of human factor.
Jesus, that's a problem. And I thought of something else in the public sector. I mean, you can see the headlines in the police are surveillance on their we can't do that. Absolutely no, because someone is going to get killed or fired anyway. So
yeah, there's certainly a lot of tech companies out there that do employee surveillance, I would say. But the ethics of that is definitely to be contested, perhaps.
Yeah. And also to be very well aware, if you're a large enterprise, and of course these enterprises are super aware of this, there might be different legislation and different rules of the game in different countries where you operate.
Yes.
So that's also extremely important that the security staff is aware of this.
Yeah. You mentioned awareness, actually, and one of the things, I mean, awareness, of course, is a wonderful thing. We all need to do awareness campaigns. It's October ECSM Cybersecurity Month next month. But I think one of my issues with awareness is that people assume that's it, done. We've done the human factor. We don't need to do anything else.
It's
We've
an
created
activity.
a really sexy campaign. It looks pretty, and that's it. We've done our job.
No.
Awareness is the first step of behavior change.
Yeah,
There's a long way to go before you get to the behavior change.
yeah, I read somewhere that the awareness, if you talk to 100 employees, 10 of them will listen to you and do what you're saying, not the rest of it. So that, and in the beginning, when I started this work for 30 years ago, I thought that, okay, 10%, that's good enough. I do this 10 times and 100%, but doesn't work that way. So you have to combine it with a lot of other things like pen tests or whatever, send out emails and look up how many are clicking on the link or whatever, and then have a discussion, awareness campaign or something. I mean, you can't just use signs that say, don't do that, because then they are doing it. Absolutely. So I think the last, when I checked, was a report that said that 30% of all employees, it doesn't matter what company, are clicking on the link, even if they shouldn't. They know that they shouldn't, but they're doing it anyway.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Out of laziness or whatever.
Yeah.
So.
And I just want to add to that, the major problem we have with awareness now, that people are starting to realize, yes, it's not an event, it is a process, and they started to deal with this but the second thing that I have started to see, that the companies are dealing with awareness as a strategy, as part of strategy, and that is quite wrong. It's a technique, but the method of raising awareness, if you do this as an event, if you just can afford one event, yes, that is good enough, but you need to actually have this as a process. And then the pedagogy is a method. It's not a strategy. It's part of a cybersecurity strategy to actually raise awareness. And you need to understand, or have people at least in your organization. We talked about, should they talk about? Yes, they should talk to each other, but they need to understand it's a technique used to raise awareness, it's not a strategy. And that is where I start to see company new that do security awareness, and they say, we are doing security awareness as a process. Fine. But I see it as part of your strategy. Yes, rubbish.
Yeah, I mean, it's like education in schools. We want to educate kids to eat healthily and not eat too much chocolate. I know I shouldn't eat. I'm aware that I shouldn't eat too much chocolate. If you put a big chocolate bar in front of me, how long do you think it would sit there before I eat it?
You got the same problem.
It's not just awareness, is it?
Yes, and it's the same problem with actually a teenager and smoking. You can put on a label on a cigarette, say, smoking will kill you. If you're 15, you think you're immortal.
Yes.
You can't reach them that way. You need to rethink it. It's a behavioral change at a target audience. Who are my target audience? And I need to understand them. So that's crucial.
I'd like us in the risk and security business to talk less about awareness and much more about it's a cliche, but still it's very valid, business oriented security culture. So we need to talk more about that, and from a risk and security professional perspective, we need to learn much more about culture and how we nurture and foster that. And speaking to the C-suite or being in the C-suite, we also need to learn much more about the business and be willing and able to add value to the business. We can't sit and, what you say in English, be grump and grumpy and wait for the C-suite to come to us. We just need to turn that around. And I haven't been in this coming from the governmental background, but that's a thing I noticed coming out, that I lack, to a certain extent, the interest from security professionals, with all respect, about the business side, the core. How can I protect and design security if I'm not super involved and super interested in the core business? So that I think is, I'm not being rude now, but I think that's something we all need to step up our game, and in order to get the trust from the C-suite.
100% agree. Business-driven risk perspective needs to be talked about much more. And this is where part when you actually need to have HR on board, because if they don't understand the culture now and in 5 years and 10 years, whether 20 years old or 30 or 40 years old, of course, I'm never going old, but that means my behavior is one thing, and the culture of the 20 years old have another different behavior, where it's the connection to procurement of technology or software and hardware that actually adapts so that we have a viable, thriving culture. And that is a business-driven risk perspective. That is not awareness.
I think risk is a great word as well. I mean, culture, I talk a lot about security culture. It's a wonderful way of getting the message across that we all need to work together, create in a positive way. But the issue a little bit, just to be aware of with culture, is it's ill-defined. What is culture? How do you measure it? Everyone measures it in a different way. Lots of people tell you they measure security culture. I can measure security culture, but everyone will measure it in a different way when you look back at scientific academia and journals. Whereas risk is more defined, that we can stipulate, we can say, okay, that is risk, that is not risk. So it becomes an easier conversation to have and an easier construct to measure. Yeah.
Speaking of security culture, I think, at least in my experience, a key word is trust.
Yes.
So
yes,
to what extent do you have trust between entities in the organization, or even between the management team?
Yeah.
So that's critical to the critical fundamenta for the thing we call security culture, I think.
What do you think of zero trust? Do you like that term?
Yeah, from a technical perspective, I think it's very convenient.
Okay.
I would say.
Yeah. I've challenged it quite a bit, obviously.
No, there are ups and downs.
Psychological point of view.
But on the other hand, if the opposite is to trust something indefinitely, I would not do that. So I think it's a longer discussion, perhaps.
Yeah. Okay, so next question. So what are the challenges in managing insider risk? So you know you've got a problem, you've identified for whatever means that there's some issues going on internally. What are the challenges in actually monitoring and managing that risk?
Again, culture. If you have a culture where actually people dare to ask questions, to talk about security and risk foremost, without feeling that they are stupid or left out, or it's a stigma or whatever. You have a grumpy old IT security guy that treats everyone like the Old Testament way: if thou shalt not, I will smite thee. And you can't have a good sense of actually detecting red flags, or who feeling down and ill, and who's got divorced and who is malicious. So again, culture, and you need to have trust. That's how you catch them. But again, you will still have in your one case scenario that you'll still have that lonesome extremist that has been just grumpy. It's turned to violence or strange thoughts that comes to work. How do you spot them in? They will be the chameleon up to the point where the excrement hits the fan. So.
And that's the problem with terrorism. I mean, if you could easily see who is gonna bomb something, I mean,
it would be easy.
Yeah.
Or espionage. I mean, if you actually, if someone has decided I'm going to steal every sensitive bit of information you have, I mean, the psychological fundament is to be the chameleon so nobody detects you, right? If you don't have a working culture or a monitoring system, they will go under the radar up to the point.
Yeah.
I have a bit of a struggle with that because if you take a traditional security-oriented individual from a security service somewhere in the West, we would say, and you ask them to spot or try to just pinpoint who in this organization would you say would be a typical at risk here from being recruited or whatever, that security guy or girl would point at a number of individuals. And then if you take a recruiter or someone who has the job of actually creating spies or insiders, most likely they would pick not the same individuals. And I think there we have a small challenge, I would say.
The gray invisible one.
Yeah, because as being on the offensive time or as team or the aggressive one, when you're going to get insiders, so to speak, sorry for my English, not all the time would you pick the most vulnerable. You go for capacity and you want actually the top talent. That wouldn't always be the most vulnerable individual. So not to go into detail in that, but I see a mismatch here, and we perhaps base the profiling discussion around the exposed spies. What about the others? So I think perhaps there's a little bit of a blind spot, which I find interesting for future discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are different layers
Yes.
to identifying and monitoring and managing the situation. You have your security vetting interviews, which not all organizations are going to do. Maybe the military, maybe the police, security services, they will take the time to interview individuals and do due diligence, check backgrounds, all those sort of criminal checks, all those sorts of things. But most people, most organizations won't go to that degree to
There's a certain baseline, of course.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why having HR or having some sort of psychological assessment is a good way of
Absolutely.
looking at the horizon, looking at the organization to see where the hotspots are.
Yeah.
Um,
I think that's very valuable to
yeah,
make sure that you have a baseline, and stuff you talk about will ensure that. So I think that's very good.
yeah, yeah. And a lot of people have no idea where the vulnerable areas are in their organization.
We're actually transcending into a really important question that actually baffled me for a moment. What is the perfect candidate to be a CISO or security? And we're always talking about, you know, you got to have these certificates and this education and background. I'm lacking security professional with behavior-based education, psychology, not degrees perhaps, but a basic understanding to establish the baseline, the normality of every individual in your company. Of course, it's going to be a huge problem within the police department, but having those security responsible persons to have some points on a college level that actually understands and makes them able to do a baseline. This is a normality. Then it's easy to pick up that, hey, you're all the strong guy, you're all the strong girl. Why are you so quiet today?
I think the problem is people don't know they need it until it's too late and incidents happen, and then they bring in the expert to find out why this incident happened.
But then again, then you will have a security specialist that say, hey, I have got this incredible education and I want a bundle of money, or I'll go in the private sector.
Okay.
So yeah, but I do believe that behavioral science is the most important thing for a security responsible person to understand or to have with them. Really.
Well, of course, I agree with you.
Yeah, of course.
Who needs technology? We don't need technology.
Another challenge of managing insider risk, I would say, make sure that you design your insider threat program in phases. So you have a pre, during, or after, a post phase. So you organize your work here. I think that's also important. It's easy for a somewhat immature, again, said with all respect, but from a more immature organization, security-wise, to not go into phases. You have to know where you are at every moment in the insider threat program. So are we doing whatever we are doing as preventive measures or what? It's different tone and different subculture in for whatever you're doing. I think that's very, very important. And another thing, try to liaise very hard with HR or legal to make sure that your organization is investigation ready. I mean, having policies individually signed off, for instance. I know there are companies who use bank ID or other stuff. That's so me as an employee, I can never say, I haven't seen that. You can't hold that against me.
That's nice. That's perfect.
So I think that's a good thing. Make sure you're investigation ready.
Okay, great. Well, we have just a couple of minutes left, but thank you so much for that discussion. That was really, really, it's so exciting for me. I love talking about it and with such brilliant people that are working in it every day. So it's really great. So we'll take some questions now from people if anyone has any. Let's have a look. I can't see any particular questions on there. Lots of comments, which we'll definitely read. Behavior is one way to recognize suspect behavior. Proactive actions like information classification and related accepted use and B, least privilege linked to roles will prevent a large number of the possible insider threats. Very true. Charles says, great point on behavior analysis and using specialists who have this type of background with your security department. Thanks, Charles. I agree. Yeah. Brilliant. Okay. So if anyone has any further questions, as I said to you before, feel free to reach out. I'd be very happy to have a discussion. But thank you very much. And Monica Kuhlberg, if behavior competence is so important, how come very few, if any, tech security companies ask for this in recruitment? Oh,
I think it's on its way, actually.
it's on its way?
I would say.
Let's hope so. So watch this space then. Okay, brilliant. All right. Well, thank you very much for today. And I wish you a good Friday and the end of Thursday and weekend.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.